Hello, Jennie Rayment here, and today I'm going to show you how to weave with a wiggle. We're going to do wiggly weaving. You could use your wiggly weaving for a table mat, which you could satin stitch around the edge. You could bind it. You could add some sparkle by couching down a ribbon or a thread of some sort. You could use the idea for a cushion front or indeed for a bag panel. You could even do it miniature for some form of a card, and indeed it can be done in felt, not necessarily fabric. All you need is a bit of material and a pair of scissors or the rotary cutter, and you can weave with a wiggle. So let me start by showing you how to make a wiggly woven table mat. I have cut a piece of, this is faster fuse or any fusible interfacing. On one side I have put a piece of fabric which will be the back of the mat, fused it on, and this surface is still fusible, so just be a little bit careful, don't plonk the iron on it. I've cut the table mat the size I wish it to be, which happens to be a 9-inch square. In addition, 2 pieces of fabric that are 9 inches in one direction and 1 inch longer in the other. So you always want to have pieces of fabric that are longer than the square. Initially, you're going to take your 2 pieces of fabric, place them both with the right sides up. Taking your rotary cutter or your scissors, you're going to literally cut with a wiggle through the layers, trying to make the wiggle interesting and not too wiggly, and trying not to have the same wiggle each time. The watch point is, do not cut right through all the fabrics, but you're cutting to within about ½ an inch of the edge. If you cut through all the pieces of fabric, you're going to have a jolly good time trying to fit them all back together again. I can just get one last wiggly woven bit in. So just use your rotary cutter, or you could use scissors, but just don't cut through the entire piece. So we've now got 2 bits of fabric that are cut with a wiggle, but not right through to the very edge. It will pay you to get some form of a padded surface, maybe a small ironing board. Lay your mat on top with the sticky side up. Take the 2 pieces of fabric and pop them on top. And I'm going to put one running horizontally, take the other piece off, and that's going to go vertically. Now notice I've just lain it so that uncut piece of fabric is just outside my faster fuse or your firm interfacing. Pin it to this padded surface. Alright, so we've done that with that piece, and we're going to do this down here. And when you've done that, all you're going to do is weave the 2 lots together. Now, weaving. Flip all the pieces out the way, that's right. There we go. Start off with piece number 1, lay it down. And then he goes over there. Piece number 2 will go under and over. And there we are. Piece number 3 will go over and under, and just work your way across the entire thing until you have woven all the pieces together. Once you have done the wiggly weaving and you have woved or woven all the bits together, it's simply a question of taking a hot iron and just pressing very slowly the fabrics carefully. Now the problem is that only the pieces that actually touch the underneath fusible surface are going to stick, so it will pay you to do a bit of stitching. And this is where you can employ some of the decorative stitches on your machine and enjoy doing any sort of fancy pattern as you wiggle straight across. Can you see on here, I've used the honeycomb pattern just to go across the wiggles. You could enjoy using coloured threads, variegated threads, anything you like. So wiggle around the pieces using some form of decorative stitch. It's at that stage, when everything is all beautifully held in place, that I would suggest you turn it over and trim off all the excess bits of fabric back to that backing square. If you very gently cut the corners in a round, because I'm going to show you how to satin stitch to get a really nice edge to your table mat. When you cut the corners in a gentle curve, and the reason for that is you don't want to satin stitch around a corner, I would suggest you sewed right the way round the outside edge of your mat. Thread your machine up top and bottom with thread that matches or contrasts your fabric, and let's do a spot of satin stitching. Right, I've threaded up my machine top and bottom with black. I'm hoping you'll use a thread that matches your fabric. You will have to have the correct foot on, so don't use your normal foot that has the flat bottom. You will need to use the foot that has the cutaway bit at the back, preferably with a cutaway front as well. That is my machine's foot. You might have one that is a Perspex one that looks a bit like this, either with or without the bar in the very centre. There is one without the bar. These feet indeed also have a cutaway bit at the back there. They don't have a flat bottom. Oh, to have a flat bottom. So make sure you put the right foot on your sewing machine. I've attached that one. Set my machine to do the widest possible zigzag. Just do it. I'm going to put the edge of the work just in the centre of the presser foot, and I set the stitch length at round about 1.5, because the idea is to go into the edge of the mat and over into mid-air or deep space. So in and off and in and off. What I'm doing is basically sealing the edge, and go all the way around the mat doing this particular stitch. Over the edge and not too close. When you get to the corner, just really pull it round, and you'll be so glad you had a roundy corner on there. When you come back to the beginning, and I'll skip because you don't need to see me do that all the way around, is you're going to close up the stitch length, so take it down to now probably around about 0.8. And we're going to go on top of and in between what we've just done. If you run the machine at a reasonable speed, you'll get a pleasing stitch out of it. So you're covering up what you've already done and going in between the stitching, still going in and off and in and off. When you get all the way round, then can you see we're beginning to build up the edge now? You're going to take the stitch length down again to anything from about 0.4, maybe even 0.3. It will depend on the thickness of the mat, the thickness of the fabric, the size of the needle and your thread. So this is a little bit of fine tuning. So back again to the beginning, and you will have sewn all the way around. Again, making sure that the edge of the mat is in the middle of the presser foot, in and off and in and off, and really run that machine very fast, because you'll get a better stitch out of it. And that is going in between and on top of everything else. And can you see I've now got a beautiful satin stitch completely covering the edge. We've looked at how you can do wiggly weaving onto a firm surface for something like, say, a table mat, but you could also use it for the front of a bag or a cushion. Good idea to do this is to put some form of fusible web on the back of your two pieces of fabric. And again, you want to have them oblongs, rectangles. It needs to be 1 inch longer. So I put some fusible web on the back, peel it off. Incidentally, should you have difficulty getting the fusible web paper off the back, if you just scratch the paper with something, you can then tear it off very easily. So scratch it with a pin or with the point of your scissors. Just don't scratch through the fabric. So remove the paper, put the two pieces of material right sides up. Do not have them right sides together. It doesn't work. Remembering you're working along the longest side, do your wiggly weaving. Don't cut through all the pieces. You just wiggle away. You can always use scissors. There we go. And I might just get one last line in. Don't go too close to the edge. When you've done that, take a backing fabric, lay one piece on one side and one piece on the other side, and then you can literally weave them. And when you've woven them, because they've got fusible glue on the back of them, they will fuse to themselves and to the background fabric. and you will have a piece of wiggly woven fabric that you could employ for using anywhere your little heart desireth. So onto the backing fabric, and then literally flip them all out the way and literally do the wiggly weaving. There we go, one up there, find that one, tuck it under, and you'll know exactly what to do from now onwards. You can weave away and wiggle to your heart's content, and when you've weaved or woven them, use it for maybe a bag or maybe the front of a cushion, and that's a spot of wiggly weaving. So if you can't weave straight, weave with a wiggle.